Gonna let you know right out the gate that this is gonna be a spoiler-free review. You don't need to have watched the original show or this new one all the way through to watch this. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. And now, the time has come. Let's talk about this. Avatar: The Last Airbender. Yes, Netflix's live-action adaptation of Nickelodeon's widely acclaimed, beloved animated series has finally come out. Needless to say, there's a lot of pressure on it. Since, yeah, the original show has such a huge fan base, I love it to death. I have videos on all of it. The last time someone tried making a live-action adaptation of the show, it didn't work out for anybody. But now, 14 years later, Netflix is giving it a shot with a proper series, not a movie. So this first season covers Book 1, the original first season of the original show, in 8 episodes that are about an hour long each, and the premise is the same. It takes place in a world in which the way of life is influenced by the 4 natural elements: water, earth, fire, and air. They once lived together in harmony, but everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. The Fire Nation, led by Fire Lord Ozai, played here by Daniel Dae Kim, is threatening to conquer the world, and only the Avatar, master of all 4 elements, can stop him. We're 100 years into the war. Avatar Aang, who is the last airbender, wakes up from being in an iceberg for 100 years, and he teams up with Katara and Sokka of the Southern Water Tribe, and together they're gonna navigate this world and see what we can do about this war. That's the basic gist of it. Now, I've been hearing different opinions in different reviews of this show. Some people think it's pretty solid, others not so much. I, for one, I thought it was pretty solid. This first season, I didn't hate it. In fact, I thought it was pretty good. Is it as good as the original first season? I mean, look, the original first season being my least favorite of the original 3 seasons, I would actually say that this new first season is about on par with it. Or maybe just a hair under. I thought this season got a lot of things right. Starting with, but not limited to, the characters. Aang, who's played here by Gordon Cormier, I thought he actually did a really good job. Cause yeah, he is serious when he needs to be, but at the same time, he is still a kid. And he is gonna wanna have some fun, and he does have some pretty fun moments in the show. Katara was done pretty well. I will say there were some moments where she did get a little preachy. I mean, she was always the wise one, she was always the glue that held the group together, but there were times where it felt like the wisdom coming out of her aged her up a bit, like it made her sound older than she is. Katara is supposed to be, what, 14? Yeah, sometimes her dialogue made her sound 24 or even older, but I'll say that is just a nitpick, because other than that, the actress was really good. And Ian Owsley as Sokka, I thought was great. I'll say this guy totally embodied Sokka as I knew him in the original show. He's the comic relief with a heart of gold, and he definitely had some moments in this season that had me laughing out loud, I'm not gonna lie. Like, as far as each actor portraying the characters from the original show, I think Sokka here is the most accurate to the original show. I was watching this and I was like, that is Sokka. Yeah, he was great. And then we have Dallas Liu as Prince Zuko, the banished son of the Fire Lord who is chasing down the Avatar to bring him back to the Fire Nation and regain his honor. Yeah, Dallas Liu was also really good. Zuko is the most layered character in the entire show, and I thought they did season 1 Zuko justice. He's tormented, he's in pain, he is hell-bent on finding this kid. He can think of nothing else. And you do understand this show does his backstory justice. You sympathize with him. He and his uncle Iroh I thought were done pretty well. Which, yeah, then we get to Iroh, played by Paul Sun-Hyung Lee, and he was good. I mean, first thing you notice about him is that he doesn't have the accent that Mako and Greg Baldwin had in the original show, which isn't that big of a problem, even though it is a change, and people will hate that for just some reason. But I liked how Iroh was done. I won't say that is like the only actor they could have gotten to play him. Like, the actor didn't really make that role his, you know? But he wasn't bad at all. And yes, I will say, both Princess Azula and Fire Lord Ozai do have bigger roles in this first season than they had in the original first season. But after watching it, I do understand why that change was made. Because this is all part of one bigger story. Yeah, in the original first season, Ozai and Azula were really just cameos, and they came into play later on. But here we see Ozai and Azula pretty early on in this first season. They're hanging out in the Fire Nation, and it's not like their roles were majorly changed. They're still not that major, but we're seeing who those characters are. We're getting a little taste of them. So for now, I'll say Daniel Dae Kim as Fire Lord Ozai, oh my god, he's awesome. He's menacing, and he is a douche. Oh my god, for those of you who know what he did in the original first season of the show, the flashback of what he did, oh my god. Again, spoiler free here, but I'm just saying that moment was recreated pretty damn well in this first season of this live action recreation. I think this is pretty good casting for Fire Lord Ozai, and I can't wait to see what he brings to the later seasons if they're greenlit. As for Azula though, yeah, I'll admit, I think her acting could be polished up a little bit.
all dear old Zuzu wants is to make it back here and take away everything I've worked for.
Which is kind of a bummer because Azula is like one of my favorite characters in the entire original show, period. She is a badass villain. And again, her role in this season isn't big at all. We're getting a little tease, a little taste of what Azula's made of, so I'll give this actress the benefit of the doubt. If we get greenlit for a season 2, I have faith that she'll improve. Finally, I do want to touch on Zhao, because he does have a pretty big role in this first season. As he does in the original, he should have been on the poster for this. I don't know why he isn't. That being said, I didn't find this Zhao as menacing as the Zhao in the original. He was good, and by the end of the season, you're like, yeah, this maniac needs to be stopped. Building up to it though, I was like, I couldn't help but compare him to Jason Isaacs' portrayal in the original show and be like, yeah, Jason Isaacs was just more menacing. That's just my opinion though. But really, alright, with this show, I am pleased to say that it got a lot of the humor right. Yeah, Avatar: The Last Airbender is supposed to feel lighthearted and fun. It's supposed to have a really good balance between serious and fun. And this first season, like the original first season if I'm being honest, doesn't always balance it perfectly, but still did pretty damn well. There were some good, fun, funny moments with Sokka, with Aang. Again, I was laughing out loud quite a few times. I gotta give this show props for that. And we'll get this out of the way. There are definitely some moments where if you know the original show, you're gonna get nostalgic seeing these things in live action. You're like, oh my god, it's that moment, and that moment had to be in there because it's a fan favorite. There would be a fan uprising if it wasn't in there. And I get the feeling that if you don't know the original show, then odds are you're not even gonna watch this. It's like One Piece. I never watched the original anime. I didn't grow up with it or anything, so I didn't watch the new live action one. Avatar, same thing, you know? I guess that's how most remakes of TV shows are. But point is, if you don't know the original Avatar: The Last Airbender show, you'll still probably like this one. That being said, myself knowing the original show, it was interesting watching this knowing how it ends. All the plot twists in each episode, all the characters. I was watching this like, yes, this is what happens. I know. There's no surprises for me. It's just cool to see it in live action finally. For the first time ever, because a movie never happened. And if you know the show, you're probably gonna watch this the same way. No surprises in the story, but it's cool. Actually, there are a couple of surprises. There is one pretty big change that they do make in the second half of the season. It's not that vital to the plot, but it is something where I was like, whoa, alright, that's not how they did it in the original show. That was done differently, but you know, I could let it slide because, again, it's not a major change to the plot of the show. It was just done differently, but it did have the same outcome, if I can say it like that without giving away spoilers. In fact, that does happen a couple of times in this season. Something is done differently, but the outcome is the same as in the original show. And I do kind of understand why it was done that way. I do. Because when translating something from animation to live action, there are changes that are gonna have to be made. That's just how it is. In animation, there are things that you can get away with that you just can't in live action. I'm not gonna dive into the details of how or why, because that's a whole other rant, but I'm just saying I understand. And besides, like I said, the outcome is the same, so I'm really fine with it. That being said, one of the big flaws that this season does have is the visual effects sometimes. Sometimes the visual effects look pretty good. Like the big cities, you see them and you're like, wow, yeah, the budget, that's where it went. Looks pretty awesome. But then there were other times, like for example, when Team Avatar's flying on Appa, you're like, whoa, alright, they're in front of a green screen, that's really obvious. In fact, pretty much throughout this entire first season, the green screen is obvious. The bending, I'll say, was done pretty well though. When Katara's water bending, it looks good. When Zuko's fire bending, it looks pretty good. The earth bending, it all looked great. Like the visual effects, I'll say, were 50-50 in this show. Sometimes it looked awesome, other times not so much. One of the biggest changes that this live action recreation makes is that it's been PG-13'd. A couple of swear words are dropped, and the first time it happened, I was shocked. I was not expecting that, and it is obviously gonna be a little more violent than the original show as well. A couple of times you see someone getting burned and you're like, geez, that must be painful. I also want to give it props for that. It's more mature than the original show. Yeah, I liked it. Maybe not everyone will agree with me on that, but you know what? Different opinions, they're okay. I will say one thing that we probably will all agree on: the soundtrack. The music in this show is awesome because it is an orchestral recreation of the original themes from the original show, and I loved hearing them. And you know, not just the original Avatar theme that you heard in the trailer, but you got the Fire Nation theme, that dun 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 dun. Just hearing these themes from a real orchestra for the first time on a soundtrack, I don't know, I just saw that as such a treat. So in the end, I will say this first season of Netflix's live action recreation of Avatar: The Last Airbender, I enjoyed it. It's definitely got some flaws, and I'm not saying otherwise. It's not perfect. That being said, I wouldn't say the original first season is perfect either, if I'm being completely honest. It gets better, and I'm hoping if this is greenlit for more seasons, it'll get better too. But for now, I think the characters were done justice for the most part. The story I thought was done justice, but sometimes the writing is a little flat. The visual effects could definitely be cleaned up, but the score is awesome, and I would be down to watch this first season again. And I would be down to watch more seasons. I'd be down to see this continue because, again, it'll get better, and seasons 2 and 3, oh my god. If they're done justice, Dude, I hope the crew and the studio takes the feedback from this first season, and if further seasons are greenlit, they apply that feedback, because this should be just the beginning. So, season 1 of Netflix's live-action recreation of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Have you watched it yet? What are your thoughts on it? And would you be down for more seasons? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Peace!